what that moment really is just being completely present. Your mind was not jumping to the past or jumping to the future. It
No,
was
it's right there.
completely right in the moment. And that's the most psychedelic experience that you can have, without question.
Nothing feels better than that.
What's up, brother?
Here we are. Here and
Here
now.
we are. Dude, I just got this new laptop. Check this out, man. You're gonna love this, man.
Oh, shit. Oh, wow.
Isn't that crazy? Like,
What
you
does
can
it do?
pick.
It's like projecting, like, images in the background?
Yeah, it just, like, puts it on the background. Hold on, let me see. Hold on. Get rid of portrait, and then
Interesting.
isn't that crazy?
Yeah.
So now wherever I am, I could just be in the same place. You know what I need to do? I'm just gonna get the Matrix Dojo, and then, yeah, but you can just put, like, whatever you want on the background. I can put whatever photo I want. It's
Sick.
crazy, huh? The world, man.
The
Mm-mm.
world. What is it? Is it
Right?
real?
Is it real or what is
Is
it
it
what?
real or is it
Yeah,
what?
so
Exact
so, yeah, I wanted to tell this cool story, man. I had a friend of mine that his, uh he was raised, like, in a really religious household, and I have a few people that are friends of mine that were raised in really religious households, and they have this anti-religion stance now that is so deep.
I kinda have that.
Really?
Yeah.
How does it manifest itself?
Well, my parents had, like, a phase, like a born again Christian phase, like, they had
Mhm.
classic fucking marriage shakeup, infidelity, fucking, instead of getting divorced, they became born again Christians, and they
Mhm.
found, like, this Baptist church that was, like, super conservative, and, there was a pastor, and he became, like, their leader, and super judgmental, super, like, "If you don't believe in Jesus, you're going to hell. Can't have sex before marriage." Like, all kinds of crazy, like, dogmatic, um stuff, and, I was, like, 12. I'm the oldest child. I'm, like, 12, 13 years old. Super formative years. We used to go to church, like, church would be at 11, but we would go at 10 so that we could do Sunday school, and, like, you know and then all of a sudden, this pastor got caught, like, banging a 17-year-old, um, and that all fell apart, and, like, then they kinda drifted away, but, like, they got, like, baptized in front of, like, the whole church and everything, and, um, fucking it just wasn't. I don't know, and then, like, it just came on super fast, super judgmental, took over my parents, and then it kinda went away, and it left me kinda feeling, like, betrayed, because it
Mm.
like, they were so invested in this,
Yeah.
and, invested in this, and then it became clear, like, how faulty it was and, like, how not foolproof. Because like, I always had this feeling as, like, a young child, like, nobody has these answers, this shit that you people are saying, that that, like, this is the nature of reality, and this is the absolute right and absolute wrong, and as a little kid, as, like, an 11-year-old kid, there was just something in me that felt as though there's something wrong. There's something wrong here. Like, there's something that just doesn't make sense, and I couldn't reconcile it into but, like, even, like, for a little period of time, like, I drank the Kool-Aid, and I was, like, like, was afraid of the devil and shit, and, like, I would remember, like, being, like, in my bed as, like, a 12-year-old, like, being afraid of, like, the devil,
Oh, wow.
and, uh and it was intense because I saw it just took over my parents. It took over them.
Yeah.
It was their drug to save themselves from and, I try to be objective about it now, and
Mhm.
and say that, well, if that thing helped them then I guess it was okay, but it wasn't good for me, and it made me very resentful and, like, super wary of anybody who is, like, super into that.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's something that's coming to light now is like a lot of people are like I have many friends who have this kind of like deep resentment. And some of them, like my buddy, who I'm gonna tell you a story about, is it almost I have to always remind them, dude, every conversation doesn't have to be about Jesus and the church because he's so anti. So you know what I mean? So it's like, dude, it's obviously still lodged. And he acknowledges that, you know? The resentment is so deep that it surfaces in every conversation. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? So angry
Yeah,
and
like,
so
I'm not angry and
well,
bitter,
you
but
weren't
I'm
raised in it like that though. You
yeah,
know what I
yeah.
mean?
It
That's what
was
I'm
a
saying.
period.
Yeah,
It
for
was
him, it's down into the depths of from his the time he was born, you know?
well, it's I know this guy. You ever hear the band called Brand New? So, like, an indie band, they were pretty big, like, in the 2000s or whatever, and, I went to
Mhm.
church with the guy. Um, he would went to the same church, but he was in it his whole life. He actually went to the school where the pastor was fucking the 17-year-old kid. It was a Christian school, and my parents tried to, like, send us to that Christian school. I was like, I took a stand, like, "No fucking chance, I'm not going." Um,
Yeah.
but all of his songs were about, the self-loathing of, like, because how you ever gonna live up to that, man? How you ever gonna live up to Jesus? You know what I mean? Like, we're supposed to strive to be like Jesus, a guy who fucking
Yeah.
makes babies without using his dick.
Yeah.
Fuck
Yeah.
out of here, man. I mean, it's crazy. But, I have a friend who Puerto Rican guy, grew up in, like, and the ethnic version of the church is very different than, like, the white conservative version of the church. And he said something that was pretty cool, was one of the coolest takes that I ever heard on religion, was like, "Yeah, man, it makes me feel good. I take what I like and I leave the rest and I don't think about it." And
Yeah.
and that but I don't feel like
Well,
there's a lot of people
I
that
think there are
have
different
that.
there are different
Yeah,
strains, right?
that's true.
There
Yep.
are different strains, like, some strains are just like, "Yeah, you just go, it's cool, it's just" you know?
Yeah.
And some people and some your parents dove very deeply into it, and that was
Yes.
you know? So, yeah, and there that was the interesting thing about being in Sicily is that I thought people would be way more religious, and they weren't at all, not like America. They
No.
weren't at all. They were like, "We've been dealing with this for thousands of years, the oppression of this religious institution. We
Yeah.
don't
They're
that's
over
what
it.
the way it was." Yeah, they were like, "No, no, 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 no,
Santa
no, we don't."
Maria, all right.
Yeah,
Pass the
out of here.
wine.
Yeah, out of here. And so, I think that's this is a great introduction, like, or an opportunity to talk about, what is trauma because, for me, the word trauma is obviously very loaded, but what it really
Yeah, I
means
hate
is
it.
there's,
Makes me feel like a
and
bitch.
yeah, we all hate it. It's terrible. It's like, it should be more like, did I form an impression in my psyche?
Programming.
Did whatever event that happened to me did it form a limbic response, like, within my body, my mind body, that is there? And if it's still there and it's lingering, and every time something comes up, you kind of have a reaction to it, then it's affecting, it's affecting the way you are functioning in the world, and you're not free. You're not free from this because the moment it's like a wound, the moment something gets close to it, if I have an infected wound and someone gets close to it, man, I'm gonna flinch and I'm gonna have all
Yeah.
these protective measures. I'm gonna have all these protective measures to keep that pain from coming up, And so that resentment that he has is very deep and it's very infected.
Well, it's like
And
it's
anything that gets near it, it comes up. The conversation inevitably is steering right back to this, no matter
I
what it
feel like
is.
it's I feel like it's kinda like a betrayal. I feel like it's kinda like a betrayal because it's like And it's not an intentional betrayal because, like, for the most part, people's parents, they just did the best they could with what they
Yeah.
had, and it's
Mhm.
hard to be alive, it's hard to be a parent, it's hard to be a person,
Yeah.
all those things, and you can't take it, but I feel like on the subconscious level, it's like you put your faith and your trust in these people, and from the beginning of life, they're like gods to you, and then they get caught up with whatever it is that they're getting caught up with, and they're insecure, they don't wanna fuck it up, so they're trying to double down and triple down, and they're putting these things on you, this programming on you, and then as life goes on, you start to feel the cracks in the theory. You start to feel the holes in the argument, and you start to get this feeling of, like, all this stuff that I thought was real is not really real, and I think what's rare is having the moment with your parents, like, between parent and child, where they both can sit almost like the passing of the torch to where, like, "Okay, hey, son, I didn't know what the fuck I was doing, and I did the best that I could, and, um, but yeah, these specific things, like, what the fuck did I know?" You know what I mean? Like, yeah, I think I did pretty good at this stuff, but this shit, I had no idea what the fuck I was doing, and I apologize. It was never meant, if it created any issues in you, that was never the intention, and I'm aware, you know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
that doesn't really happen, and I can
That
relate from
conversation,
that conversation is a rare conversation.
it didn't happen with you and your parents?
Well, it definitely didn't happen with my mom. My mom passed away,
Okay.
without ever having the opportunity. What I am grateful for is that because of my mom's passing, I did have some of conversations that were, not the version that, I thought that I wanted, but whatever the version was between my father and I was good enough because it was like, just the littlest shred of vulnerability and self-awareness on his part melted like walls of resentment, melted years of resentment, like unbelievable. Unbelievable because, like, they love you, you love them, you know what I mean? Like, for
Yeah.
the most part, all that stuff, but there are these subconscious things that have been programmed into you that you're not even aware of, that you think the things that you think, but also subconsciously, there is the resistance to it. There's the piece of you, like me at 12 years old, who knew when there was some fucking, 28-year-old guy from fucking Iowa who, like, married into this, like, family that had, like, 13 daughters with blonde hair, um, and was, like, saying, like, "Well, it's turn or burn, brother. If you're not a Christian, all those little children in India who are Hindus, they're going on," and, like, I knew it, and I didn't know how I knew it. I was 12, but
Yeah.
I knew, like, my internal radar was like, "This is not real. This is bad.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna agree." And I think I remember saying something, and they asked that they called my parents and asked me to, like, be you know, removed from the class, like, "Oh, he needs a timeout because he's," and, but I think you have these things, but it's scary. It's scary to go up against programming that's been forced on you, that may be by your parents or maybe by society, because you don't wanna take the risk and be wrong. Nobody wants to be the guy on the outside. Nobody wants to
Yeah.
be the black sheep. Nobody wants to be the one that's going against the grain, but yet there's this feeling that something's not right. Something's
Yeah.
not right,
Yeah.
and, you need courage to to
It's
to to
hard.
lean into that stuff. It's
It's hard
super.
it's hard for people to go and usually it doesn't happen at 12 and, later in life, they start questioning everything and just start saying I think we all I don't wanna say all, you can't speak for everybody, but for me, it's definitely like a constant, like this framework of viewing the world is not working. This doesn't work. It's nonsense. I mean, I feel that way about a lot of things in society, not even religion, where it's like, what? Why do you think that it is that way? Why do you think, you know what I mean? Even
I've always
small
been.
things that people latch onto, their psyches latch onto, I remember having that conversation with someone on a podcast a few years ago about socialized medicine, and the guy was talking about how bad socialized medicine was and all that, and I just got back from Europe, And I was like, I used to think that way before I went and lived in Italy and I got to experience socialized medicine. And one of the reasons I went is because I realized I was talking and had an idea about something that I never experienced. And so I was basically
Yeah,
full of shit.
which
And
is
he just sat
fucking
there. And
90
I'm like, have you ever
90%.
lived in a country with socialized medicine, or are these just things you're hearing on the news?
You ever even gone
Right.
there?
Yeah, you ever yeah, I did, and then he just sat there, and I'm like, "This is the problem with the world, but not just the world, the individual. Why we can't grow is because we latch onto some type of a rule." Dude, it's like being in the middle of the ocean and finding a, uh, a piece of driftwood and just clutching to it, even though it's not even holding you up, just because you're scared shitless.
Well,
That's
that's what it
what to
is.
me, what
That's
people
what it
do.
is.
Yeah.
That's what it is, and they're not aware of it. They're not I mean, because it's like socialized medicine or anything political. Even, like, if you look at and, even if you look at what's going on, like, right now, like, with Elon and Trump and, like, what they're doing, like, with Doge, and I listen to people talk back and forth about it, and I think to myself, regardless of, like, which way you swing and, what your ideals are, when you look at these things, and I would equate socialized medicine to the same thing. Like, when you look at, like, going into the government agencies and reducing bloat, poor spending, fraud, poorly spent resources. When you just look at it that, same thing as socialized medicine. When you just look at just the piece of providing resources so people can have access to free medicine because we pay taxes and that could be a part of it. When you
Mhm.
take those things at face value, super hard for anybody to argue and say, "Oh, no, we want the politicians to fucking spend the
We
money
want bloat.
poorly." We want bloat and we want, like, we want all this stuff that's, like, clearly not good for anybody except them. Or we wanna pay overprices on medication. Nobody's gonna say that, but yet they take these things and they attach them to these larger idealistic concepts that's like, people like us do stuff like this.
Yeah.
And or people like us don't do stuff like this. And it's like, why do we have to think that way? What do you mean people like us?
Because
Everybody is
they're
like
because
us.
they're creating a religion, and it's what
Yeah,
that
it's
they're trying to
exactly
do is
what it
get
is.
people to check their brains at the door. Check your brain at the door, and you have to buy into this whole set of this ideology, this whole
It's
set.
weird.
It's
It's weird
weird,
because
it's weird.
I never and I don't know, I mean, maybe it's grateful to my parents for this, but, like, I never that thing, that, like, feeling to belong, that, like, desire to be a part of something, I never really had that.
Mhm.
I never really had that, like, I didn't have it, and I still don't, but so many people do.
Yeah. So my buddy, what's really interesting is that he has, like, this complete disdain for anything that is not, like, materialistic, right? And so there's, the branch of material, some people view the world as materialistic, some people view the world strictly like there was some big bang, whatever, however you wanna look
Whatever.
at it.
Yeah, we're here.
Yeah, however you wanna look at it, and it was really cool because we talk a lot about Zen, and he was explaining to me the other day when he was in the garage, and he went to reach for hold on, I'm realizing I don't have my light on my guitar. Right there we go. Okay,
Push.
so he realized that as he was reaching for a wrench, he looked at his hand, and it was like time stopped, and he just became super aware of his hand, and he became super aware of everything, like, in the garage, and it just became so crystalline and perfect, and he's like, "It was the most beautiful experience," and I said, "Listen, man, that right there is in
That's
Zen what
it.
they call satori. You're having in a moment of a flash of enlightenment, right? That is what and what was really cool about that is that I think one of the greatest attributes that we have as human beings is our one of the greatest powers, it's like a superpower, is this ability to self-examine our own psyches. And I
Sure.
think it's very underrated, especially in our society where everything is about just go out and do, as opposed to go inward and investigate your mind. Go inward and master your mind. Someone was just someone gave me this quote yesterday. They were like, "Did you ever read the book Napoleon Hill?" I think it was Think and Grow Rich.
I
And
did.
I never have. I've
I
seen
read the
quotes.
ori I read the original one, which is called the original book is called The Law of Success.
Okay, cool. And one of the quotes that he gave me was just, it all happens I'm paraphrasing it, but it all
Yeah.
happens in your mind. If you
Yes.
can't get hold of your mind, and every great thinker throughout time has said the same thing. Plato, Marcus Aurelius, they're all saying, all the Stoics, all the Zen masters, all the rishis, they're all the
Well, yeah.
Christian mystics, like, so I think the power of examination that we have is so profound, and I find it so cool that someone like this, who is so against anything religion or anything spiritual, you know what I mean? To the point where he has defense mechanisms that you couldn't even fathom, right? Because he was raised in it and finally broke away. He was able to have this incredibly whatever kind of spiritual, whatever experience, Zen experience, I don't know, scientific experience, whatever we wanna call it. I just found that to be incredible. Where, and what it made me reflect on the ancient teachings like of Zen, and we're talking about like 1,000 years before BC. I think Buddha started it was in 600 BC, but even before then in India, where they were able to sit with their psyche because they have the same brains that we do, and were able to learn so much of how the mind works. And that to me was just incredible, man. Incredible.
It's the whole thing. It's the whole
And
thing. It's complicated.
why are people unwilling to do it? Why do we have a culture of people who want to minimize the effects of the impressions, whatever trauma is now so loaded we can't talk about it.
No.
But whatever word you want to talk about it, you know, why is it that people are so defensive and be like, I don't have a problem. I grew up like that. Everybody grew up like that. Be fine. Don't be a pussy. Keep going. You
It's
know,
programming,
W
man.
we wanna minimize and we do not wanna turn inward.
No, and the real toughness is the going inwards and facing yourself. That is
Whew.
that is the real toughness. I've long felt this in my life to where, like, the tough guy is not the guy who pretends he's not afraid of anything. The tough guy is the guy who acknowledges that he's afraid, but keeps pressing on anyhow.
And it's not the guy tough guy is not the guy who says, "I don't talk about my feelings. I don't need to talk about
No,
my feelings. I don't." Dude, I was on a podcast not too long ago with a, special forces Marine who had some shit go down and, a lot of trauma, and he was talking about this same thing and about how he has to cure the deal with the PTSD and all, having to go in, learning to go have just learning to go inward, and
because you gotta
y
let it out. You gotta let it out.
yeah,
It consumes you, and it drives you mad, and you do all kinds of stupid shit, but it's so insidious, it's so subtle, it's so deep, it's thousands of years. It's not just like the way you grew up with your parents, it's not just that.
no,
It's
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 not.
it's it's thousands of years of programming,
Mhm,
thousands of years of social program. This morning I had a closing, at a lawyer's office, um, for that merger deal that we did. And,
mhm,
and there was, like, a couple of moments of, like, tension about, like, money like, had to get my lawyer on the phone, because he's in another, place, and they're arguing over, commas and shit, and And I just kept thinking to myself about how, like, this subject, this topic, this thing that's not even real has such control over us. Such absolute, like,
You mean money?
control money, yeah, and just all the things like that. It's just programming. And, like,
Yeah.
yet we're still here. We're still here, and I don't know, it's just crazy.
It's
And
crazy. So
not enough people are not enough people are participating in self-examination.
yeah. And you know, like in the Napoleon Hill book and like everyone has ever said, if you wanna unlock peak performance and happiness and joy and peace and all of those things, like you know, there are a subset of people who were born with a certain type of trauma and they have a certain type of reaction that turn them into supreme overachievers. And
Sure.
they have an intelligence that is, you know, in a specific area. Elon Musk's a perfect example, right? Like he's very good at like a few things,
Yeah.
but it will prove, I mean, Tesla stocks in free fall and, you know, lost $100 billion in the last 30 days. It could prove like, oh, you were really smart in a few things and you took some very big gambles, you know. So we'll see. But, you know, you see many, many people who are very successful in one sphere of their life and everything else unravels because
Yeah.
they don't do this work. They can't do it. You know, they
I got
don't want to do it.
have you ever heard this is an interesting one. Have you ever heard, like, this was going around over the past, like, few years. I don't know if it was like a study or something, but something to the effect of, like, some people don't have an internal monologue and others do. Have you ever heard of
I
that?
I I have a,
We talked about this, right? You have a
yeah, we
client who
did
does,
talk about
yeah.
it. Yeah, I have a client who didn't have an
I think
internal
that's
mount.
a big factor in, like, the way maybe more people don't have that than we're aware of, but I don't think
I
so.
think I did this study. I think it's like 20-30%
That's a
is what
lot.
what but it's not that they don't think, they don't have the verbal, chatter, but
Do you
they
think those
have
people are happier?
the slipstream. Oh, dude, he told me I'm always happy. I'm like, "What?"
The
I
fuck?
just was like, "Are you kidding me?"
Is that
And
the genetic
so,
lottery?
dude, what the hell? Maybe, you know, we got pharmaceutical companies are coming out with everything, hormones, right? Manjura for losing weight. Maybe that'll be the next thing. We've
Stop
got
thinking, just take this pill. You'll be happy. Fuck.
that's Aldous Huxley's Brave New World with Soma. And
Wow.
that's a whole plot of that book. So
Wow.
yeah, very good book. So, anyways, yeah, so continuing with my buddy, I he had done psychedelics a few times and he loves to do psychedelics, right? And but he's one of those people who likes to do psychedelics with other people. And I'm a person where I like being around other people a little bit, but I always want to retreat and go meditate. That's like my thing. And you know, some people are more like introspective in when they do psychedelics, and he's more like always wants to be with people having fun. I have friends like that, and I'm kind of envious in a way. You know, it's like they're just ready to have a good time and not necessarily going out to a club, but just being around a fire and all that. So for me, I'm gonna walk away and I'm gonna go lay under the stars and you know contemplate whatever. And so no right or wrong here, but he was telling me how and I kept telling him, man, you got to do psychedelics by yourself at some point. And he's very experienced with them, but always in that group setting. And so he went and he did a friend of his came over and was in the garage and they were having some drinks and it was the guy's birthday. And the guy was like, come on, let's do some psychedelics. So they did a bunch of mushrooms. And he the finally the guy left and he was like realized in the garage, holy shit, I'm alone. And went upstairs and he's like, I just did the one thing you're not supposed to do. I knew it. I was alone and I just started staring in the mirror. I don't know if
Yeah.
you've ever done this on
I
psychedelics.
was just telling you, that's where that devil voice has fucking
Oh,
that came
yeah,
from.
yeah.
Yeah, that's no good.
And
Don't stare in the
so
mirror. Listen up,
so he
kids.
was
Don't
yeah.
do it.
So he was staring in the mirror and just said he just fell into himself. And what was really interesting is that he was like, all of a sudden, I watched these other parts of myself emerge. And he's like, I saw like this part of myself that was really almost like a beast but it was part of my psyche. And I was like not comfortable with it, but I had to learn to get comfortable with it. He realized. And I was like, that is so incredible because that's what I'm talking about, where the psyche and our capacity and the power of introspection and self-examination of the psyche is so crucial because, there's a psychological branch of study of the psyche called internal family systems.
Yeah,
Yeah, and
I'm
so and
aware.
it what it basically says is as we grow up, as we form the scaffolding from being, you know, babies, that we form this new scaffolding, and inside of their scaffolding, we form our ego. But within that, there are other parts. So we actually do have multiple parts, and we do have the part that's like a beast, right? That's
Yeah, the
called
warrior, the
yeah, the
firefighter.
warrior. These things form to help us interact with the world. And I just found it so like fascinating that, he had no understanding of any of that and just went and dove in to his own psyche and experienced that. And
Yeah.
was like and came away with what was truth. It's like these things are not relegated to like a certain branch of like, monks that are gonna go sit in a cave.
No,
That's not what it's people think that's like what it's about. It's like, no, that's not no, you
no.
do it at home, this is available to all of us.
Well, you said you said before about your friend with the tool shed with the hand and the wrench.
Mhm.
Um,
Same guy, same guy.
Same guy?
Mhm.
So, wha from being from early on as a young child, I would have those experiences on, like, nice spring and summer days when I would look up at the trees and, like, the wind would be moving through the trees, and the trees look like it was breathing, and
Mm.
I would always get stuck in those moments in a real feeling of, like, peace, I never as I got older, I would
Well,
start
you
to
say
realize.
stuck, why do you say stuck? That has a negative connotation.
Yeah, it's the wrong that's the wrong word, not stuck in a negative
Mhm.
way, but, like, it would stop me in my tracks,
You're,
and I
like,
would I
bathing in it. Yeah, yeah.
yes, and,
Mhm.
uh, and it would always bring me, like, this really good feeling, like, this peaceful feeling, and recently, I was trying to explain that to my children, to my sons, and I would make them look up at the tree, and and now when I notice it, I always make them look, and, but it's like, that's it, it's those, like we can train ourselves to notice stuff like that. And that's, you could go the way of like, oh man, that's like weird and fucking, or you could say like, this is it, man. This is the actual experience of life happening
Of being
and
alive, of being alive.
of being alive. And if we could find more moments like that, not like hocus pocus, mysticism, but just like that's so much more real than like,
But
the amount of
that's
money you
but
think you need to make or the car you
oh
gotta
my
drive
gosh.
or the travel team that you gotta make sure your kid hits every practice. Like, you know, those moments are so much more important than all of the bullshit that we think.
Those moments are satori, and that is actually enlightenment. And the goal of doing the work is to expand, not just to experience those moments, but to expand those moments for longer and longer periods so that we are fully in each. Could you imagine walking around every day, all day, and just being in that? I
Well,
wanna be stuck in that in that place, you know?
could you imagine if in school, instead of preparing you for the fucking SATs, who gives a fuck, they brought you outside in springtime and they made you sit and look at the way the trees breathe? And that was part of education of being a human being? Could you imagine if there were more things that were geared to that level? Like, why don't we do that? Why don't and I'm not talking about, like because, bro, I love making money. I love, material shit. But it's not like an and or. It's like experience this life, do what you wanna do, but understand, like, have a little bit of a better understanding of what's really going on underneath the surface, and we can put time into that. I mean, we can put time and effort, and we could create, um, resources around that, not with not, so much all the resources that are now that put into what? Into, joining the rat race, getting a fucking degree so you can get a job with health insurance? Yeah, fuck you. Who cares?
Yeah, I mean, it's in and that it's so wild because if you had imagine a culture that a society where everyone was keyed in like that and was taught that. That's kinda like that's with the book, with the Zen protocol, with what we're talking about. It's like, no, this is available to every one of us at all times, and you can be completely happy and at peace and still go about and do all the things you wanna do. There's no dropping out, and there's no you don't have to go to a preacher to get it. No one has to tell you. You don't have to jump through hoops. You
You
don't
don't have
have
to join
to
a team. You don't have to be
you
part of
don't
the
have to
club.
join a team. You don't have to wear a hat. You don't have to do
Yep.
any of it,
Yep.
or wear a shirt, get all
Yep.
that, not get a bumper sticker. It's like, no, all of us can have that. And what's so interesting is that, what that moment really is just being completely present. Your mind was not jumping to the past or jumping to the future. It
No,
was
it's right there.
completely right in the moment, and that's the most psychedelic experience that you can have, without question.
Nothing feels better than that.
Not
Nothing
wild.
feels better than that.
And think about this, Jesse, if
That's why people do
the
drugs, 'cause it
you no
manufactures it.
question,
It
no
falsely
question.
it falsely manufactures that feeling.
And I think we've all felt it, and I think we're born with it, and because we're born like that, where we have no stories, we have no jumping to the future and the past, that we spend enough time in our infancy to where our psyche will forever retain the memory of being completely present. And so what that means is that we have this constant seeking to get back there
Mm.
because that is our true nature. And so then everything else clouds it and we get stories and you're going to hell and you're sinful and you're lazy and you're not smart and you need to work to
Selfish.
justify your existence. And you get put all this shit on top of it and you feel unworthy. You're not allowed to experience it. And so, but there's an innate in every single human being, I believe, desire for that state, but we conflate it, we confuse it with getting a new car, with getting this, with buying this, with getting a new, going on vacation. Oh, once I go on vacation, then I'm going to feel it.
Oh,
Then
the
I'm going
weekend,
to,
living
hmm?
for the week living for the weekend,
Yeah,
you know?
I can't wait till the weekend comes. They say that it's not when you do achieve whatever it is you've been focusing on and thinking is gonna give you that feeling, that it's not the achievement of whatever goal or buying or whatever acquisition, or it's actually the cessation, the ending for at least a brief time of the desire that you were feeling to get to the weekend or to get
Yeah.
to, or to buy this thing. Then you buy the shiny new thing. I've got it. Here it is. Ah,
You don't give a
and the
fuck anymore.
feeling of awe that you have is actually the cessation. And then for just a brief moment, you're experiencing that, okay, everything's cool. I could just be present for a moment, you know?
Yeah.
But that's really what we're trying to do. We're trying to get to be you had in that moment where you are completely present. And think about how in the present, there is in the past, because our mind is going, if I get this in the future, then I'm going to do this. Or I regret that this happened in the past. I'm such a shithead. I shouldn't have done that. All that. Both those things are fantasies, and there's nothing alive in the future. Nothing.
Huh.
And there's nothing alive in the past. Nothing. They're both dead.
Yeah.
So when we're in the present, it makes sense that we go when for those brief moments that we are present and our mind isn't clouding it and jumping to the back, we're just like, what is this? It's almost like being in a VR experience, right? Where you're just
Yeah.
like, what is going on? But it's
Yep.
the present that we're walking through every moment of every day. We just don't
It's
see
all
it.
that it's all that there is. There's nothing else. It's wild.
It's so cool, man, huh? So cool.
It is. It is.
So what was your I wanna hear your most intense psychedelic experience.
Probably that time when I was in the like I said to you, I was drinking and I was with somebody. We had mushrooms and the plan was, we went to this really cool like spa resort place and have these huge saunas and bathhouse and everything. And the plan was to do it during the day. But the night before the drinking's going and it's like, oh, let's just do it. And and I because I was drinking and I had a buzz, I just kept eating them. I had a bag full of just like not even capsules, just straight up mushrooms, raw mushrooms.
Yeah.
And I just kept eating them and just kept eating them. And then I wasn't really feeling much and I was drinking, so I just did more and more and more. And 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 then I looked in the mirror. And then as soon as I looked in the mirror, like the devil started like speaking and my mouth wasn't moving. Like my lips were closed, but yet clear as day, there was a voice that was talking, and it wasn't me. And it was scary as shit. And I've had a few. I had one experience where I was with a friend, like a longtime childhood friend, and we were starting a trip, and I felt this feeling of panic and anxiety, and I started to see like the street started to like you know kinda, the street started to move, you know what I mean? Like a like the physical reality began to distort, and I started getting really overwhelmed with this anxious feeling, but, like, I willed myself to get through it, and then he and I, because 'cause we've known each other since we were children, like, connected on, like, this such beautiful level of, like, 2 people that have known each other for a lifetime, and we talked about, like, some wrongs that I've done to him and some wrongs that he's done to me, and we kinda like,
Wow.
put, like, like, just 2 guys who've known each other for forever since boyhood, and it went from this horrible anxiety to this beautiful moment, and it was like one of those, like, pure cycles of, like, the hero thing you were saying before to where, like, you went into this deep, deep, dark cave, but you didn't stay there, and you found your way out the other end, and, like, that beautiful process of going in, facing yourself, facing the stuff, and realizing that you're gonna get through it. It's okay, and all we have is right now. And, so, yeah, I've had a bunch of wild experiences.
I think that's such a cool metaphor for life, right? It's like,
Yeah.
man, you're gonna go through some shit, you know?
Yeah, but it's
You're
gonna be
gonna
okay.
you're gonna go through some if you can remember that. Yeah, if you can just be like, "Listen, man, it's gonna pass, keep your head down, just ride it out, feel it. It's gonna be okay, but you cannot panic." And I think it's so fascinating that, meditation. I was just watching this thing with Sam Harris's wife, Anka Harris, and she does a lot of like work with meditation. So does Sam and consciousness just really, she was talking about how the meditation works on the exact same part of the brain, the default mode network, as the psychedelics, and when we meditate a lot, you start to dampen the power of the default mode network, and that's the benefit of long-term meditation. But psychedelics give you a glimpse of that because they shut down that part of the brain, and that
Yeah.
part of the brain is where the stories are, and where the stories are is where where you are, like where I am. So the story of Nick and all this nonsense is just a bunch of stories, just a bunch of thoughts, and it's all stored in this one part of the brain called the default mode network. And so when people do psychedelics, sometimes they freak out because they're they're so clung to their identity that when it starts to go, they feel that ego death.
Yeah.
And when that ego death it feels like you're dying.
Yeah.
And so some people like freak the F out, but it's because they're so intertwined with these false narrative of who they are.
Yeah. Letting go is horrifying.
It's horrifying. People do not like it.
Yeah.
For me,
Letting
I
go.
I really try and like all of my meditation is all about breaking that cycle and understanding that that I am, my identity is false. It's illusory. It's just a bunch of nonsense. Just so I can try and get back to that state that you're talking about. I want to be underneath the tree. I want to be the kid underneath the tree, looking at the tree, breathing, going, whoa, that is so cool. I mean, listen to your
Yeah.
description of that, how much that sounds like a psychedelic trip.
Yeah, and that was way before I ever even smoked weed. You know what I mean? That was way before I ever knew any, like drug induced, hallucinogenic induced, experience.
That's so cool, man. That is so cool. It's so inspiring. It's so
Yeah.
inspiring. It's gonna be very interesting to see when I'm excited to see because I don't think you need to be in a certain place. You do it at home, whatever it is, where all these experiences you can have in your closet, in your room, or whatever. But
Yeah.
there's a part of me that's like, man, I can't wait to go to Thailand and India and,
You gotta
meditate and
watch
experience.
White Lotus, man. White
I
Lotus,
know.
the new season there in Thailand, it's interesting. It's
Oh,
such a
they're
good
in
you
Thailand?
Yeah, so it's 3 seasons. The first one, they're in Maui,
Yeah.
the second one, they're in Sicily, and
Mhm.
the third one, they're in Thailand. And, like,
How is it?
Wh White Lotus is, like, this luxury chain of hotels, and each season takes place at the White Lotus in that area, in that
Mm,
part of the world, and it's
mm.
amazing. It's, like, such an incredible character study of, like, human insanity. It's, like it's so good. It's like, I know that you will absolutely love it. Love it.
Oh, I can't wait. Can you believe that I have not watched the one in Sicily? And I was
Yeah,
there
dude,
when they were filming?
you're gonna love it. Love it. Very, very good.
Oh my gosh, man.
Very good.
Holy shit, man. I can't wait to watch it. Well, I guess that's on my, that's, uh, that's the something I gotta watch.
That's
One more thing. Did you get a chance to listen to the podcast?
no.
I'm gonna bring this up. So this is Peter Attia, and he
Yep.
was talking, this goes back to looping it back to what we were first talking about and about minimization and all that. This podcast with Peter Attia, it's The Drive with Peter Attia. I think if anybody
It's his
recommend it.
podcast. Yeah, The
Yeah,
Drive,
it's
yeah.
his podcast, and he has a
I like
trauma therapist that he went to, and, that he went to a retreat, and the guy was a, speaker there or a counselor there,
Is this the
and
one where the guy made him record the videos, like, talking like the
I think no, but that's not what they're talking about, but I
Okay.
think that's where he went, and it was really interesting because, once again, what we're talking about is that kid sitting underneath the tree looking at the tree breathing and just being in the moment, that's Satori, is what we're really talking about is freedom, right? And what we're trying to be is free. That little kid that you were was free. That kid
Yeah,
was
in that
free.
moment.
Free from everything. No worry, no shame, no concern, just like and able because you were free, you were able to experience the world in all of its psychedelic, beautiful, crystalline perfection. And that's the goal. That for me, that's the goal. And so what he was talking about was really interesting. He talked about, okay, there's a kid 4 years old and his parents are arguing again. And he's hiding in the bedroom and parents are arguing and the kid hears the mom say, "Don't, I think you broke my arm." And so the kid comes out of his room and he looks at his dad and his dad's 30 years old. What's he going to do? And the mom's got her arm behind their back. And so the kid is walking towards the kitchen and instead he stops, he looks in the bathroom, he goes in the bathroom and starts throwing up, making himself throw up. As soon as he does, the parents, the mom's like, "Look, now you made him throw up. We got to go take care of him." So they come in, they stop fighting. All right. Now, what has happened to this kid's psyche? Because the psyche is building. What has
Yeah.
happened to this kid's psyche, right? This kid has learned that to get a positive outcome,
Gotta
he should
suffer.
deceive and lie.
Yeah.
And now this behavior, this subconscious inclination and urge to do this follows this kid until he's 35, 40 years old. And it starts to negatively affect his business, relationships, and his marriage. And he can't
So
understand, why do I keep having this urge? Why am I not free of this subconscious urge? Is the kid a bad kid? Is the person a bad person? The
no.
person's psyche was formed in a formative time, and he learned to interact with the world that way.
We just didn't
That's why
we
Go
didn't
ahead.
talk about this. It's generations of not even this conversation that you and I are having, talking about this is like people didn't do that. So people up until very recently unaware of all of that stuff.
Yeah. And yet this person, it would be very easy for this person being a tough guy saying, "I don't have an issue. I don't have an issue." Do have an issue. You're not free. That's your issue. You're not free. When we have these subconscious programming algorithms that are activated in times of stress or whatever it is, then all of a sudden we do it. And then we're like, what just happened? Why did I say that? Why did I lie? Why did I do this? Why did I do that? I don't understand it. You got to do the work to get all the way back. And that takes the courage and the strength to be vulnerable and say, I got to do this work, and then start to do the work.
Yeah.
So we can be free. We're never going to be free unless we do the work.
Yeah.
We can fake like we're
100%.
free. We can go buy an American flag and all that and talk about freedom. But are we free? No,
No.
no. So anyways, I thought you'd like that story, man. Because for me, I was
Absolutely.
like, that's it right there, man. Yeah, it's so cool that we're at a time where people are finally starting to talk about this.
Yeah.
Very cool. Because what's on the other side is freedom and happiness. That's what's beautiful
Yeah.
about it. And peak performance. So
Fucking
anyways,
A.
what do you got this weekend, man?
No. I don't know. I go find out.
Gonna figure something out. Don't get in
Yeah.
trouble.
I'm trying to get free.
Yeah, try and get free. Exactly. I'm gonna watch White Lotus. You've actually
Do it.
motivated me to start watching it. So
You're gonna love it.
I know. I'm really pumped, man. Hey, I'm coming up to we just dropped the podcast with Luigi. I'm gonna come up for the party at for Half Sumo in New York. I just booked my flight. So
Okay, so if you're gonna
for
go, I'm gonna go.
April 11th, yeah.
Yep, yep.
Yeah. Come into the city.
Yeah, I'm gonna come.
We'll do some jujitsu. We'll figure out a place to go do some jujitsu.
Hell yeah.
Get a few
April
guys
11th.
together. I'm finally back
Done deal.
rolling like full hard. I'm not playing guard yet, but I'm rolling hard. So
Okay.
which
Awesome.
feels good. Yeah.
Definitely in.
All right, bro. All right, man.
Right, man.
That was a good one, bro.
Yes, sir.